start with the truth nobody wants to say out loud. You are never in control until you own the economics behind your image, your culture, and your labor. Anything less is just exploitation with a better wardrobe. Welcome to Gaslight, Politics of Sports, a special Polysports Tea Time collab with Let's Talk Sports and Be Wise Polysports. I'm Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies. We pulling a mask off one of the slickest lies in modern athletics, the illusion of ownership. Because the system wants you to believe visibility equals power. A billboard with your face on it doesn't mean you in control. A sneaker deal doesn't mean you have equity. If the image is yours, but the profit is theirs, that ain't ownership. That's branded with shackles. The generations black labor built empires we were never allowed to own. The plantation changed shapes from cotton fields to corporate arenas, but the power dynamic stayed the same. And even in the NIL era, young athletes are being taught to chase exposure instead of equity. Wear this, promote that, grow your platform, but nobody teaches them to ask, do I own stock in what I'm selling? Am I building wealth or someone else's portfolio? That's the trap. Visibility without ownership is a distraction tactic. They'll put you in a commercial, but not in the boardroom. They'll hand you the product, but hide the profit. It's the same economic setup our ancestors fought to escape. Now repackaged in designer sneakers and sold on Instagram as hustle culture. That's not ownership. That's aesthetic poverty with a blue check. So here's the real question. The question the system hopes you never learn to ask. How do we stop playing the role of highly paid performers in billion-dollar sports machines and start becoming educated owners, equity negotiators, and political organizers for our communities? Because if the game is printing billions off your talent, why are you still renting your power?
What's up, Auntie Cess? You just laid down the truth. And the truth hurts when you've been raised in a system designed to keep you comfortable with crumbs. I'm Political Lil. And before we go any further, let's set the foundation. We're in a moment of reckoning. Young black athletes are waking up, but they're waking up to a burning house. And the house is NIL. On the surface, it looks like opportunity. But if we're not careful, it becomes just another tool to co-opt our image and commercialize our culture without shifting the ownership structure. This is not just about deals, it's about design. We've seen athletes secure the bag and still die broke. We've seen jerseys retire with statues in stadiums while families are left with nothing but memories and medical debt. That's not a coincidence. That's capitalism operating exactly as it was built, to harvest black genius and recycle the wealth elsewhere. So while NIL can be a pathway to power, it also becomes a new form of digital sharecropping if you don't understand the terrain. Now, we're seeing a few athletes flipping the script, demanding equity instead of exposure, partnering on product ownership, launching their own brands, investing in startups, even building leagues like Unrivaled. But it's not just about a few doing it. It's about creating a political culture where every athlete understands their leverage, where NIL doesn't just stand for name, image, and likeness, but now I lead. So ask yourself, are we teaching our young superstars to be entrepreneurs or just influencers? Are we organizing them to be power brokers or just pawns in a new market? Because if we don't claim our power, someone else will, and they already are. This episode, we're going to unpack the truth behind brand deals, explore the difference between endorsements and equity, and highlight athletes who are rewriting the rules, because it's time to stop playing games and start owning the court.
Let me ask y'all a question. What's the difference between slavery, sharecropping, and sports? The uniform. Let's break this open without sugarcoating. This conversation goes way beyond NIL and way past branding. What we're seeing right now is the newest chapter in a long American pattern. Black bodies valued for profit, but rarely given control. Before stadium lights and media rights deals, there were fields. Black labor built this country's wealth for free. When slavery ended, the system didn't give up control. It rebranded it. Sharecropping replaced slavery, but the power dynamic stayed exactly the same. Black people did the labor, white landowners took the profit. New terms, same exploitation. Fast forward, look at college sports. Tell me that ain't the same blueprint. For decades, the NCAA ran a $1 billion operation off unpaid black athletes. Players packed arenas, sold jerseys, fueled TV contracts, and couldn't afford dinner off campus. Pre-NIL, a $50 handshake could end your career. Signing an autograph for money could cost you your scholarship. Accepting a ride home was a violation. Meanwhile, athletic directors, conference commissioners, and TV executives cashed in on the backs of teenagers being told to stay humble. That's not amateurism. That's exploitation in a suit and a tie. March Madness alone brings in over $1 billion in ad revenue every year. Who drives the ratings? Who fills the brackets? Who puts the fire on the court? black athletes. But before NIL, they were locked out of the very economy they built.
And let's spill a little more tea while it's still warm. Look at the professional side. Folks love to bring up Michael Jordan like he's the blueprint for black wealth, athletic wealth. But let's rewind. When Jordan signed with Nike in 1984, he was just endorsing shoes. He didn't own any part of the company. Nike made billions off of Air Jordans before MJ got anything close to equity. His brand was golden, but the machinery belonged to Phil Knight and Nike shareholders. Jordan didn't even get stock until years later, after he'd already built the entire Jumpman empire. And even now, how many athletes are actual owners in their companies that they're helped building? LeBron started flipping that script, getting equity in Beats by Dre before the Apple sale, cashing out big. He's got stake in Blaze Pizza, Spring Hill Entertainment, and real production power. But he's the exception. Most players are still signing endorsement deals with no long-term value. They're pushing products they don't profit from behind the check. And when the contract ends, so does the power. And you want to know what this reminds me of? The old Negro leagues. Before integration, black folks had our own leagues, our own teams, our own ownership. But what did integration do? It gave individual players access to the Major League Baseball, but dismantled collective black ownership in the process. That's the playbook. Offer a few stars a seat at the table while erasing the structures we built ourselves. So when folks act like NIL is liberation, I say, hold up. Freedom isn't just signing a check. Freedom is owning the desk the check is written from. And if you don't understand that, baby, you're not playing the game. You are the game.
Now that we exposed the roots, let's get into the remix. Because today's athletes are finally waking up. They're not chasing deals anymore. They're chasing ownership. And this is where the entire conversation shifts. Because not every athlete is building wealth. A lot are just looking wealthy while somebody else secures the real bag. So let's break down the types of deals on the table because there are levels to this. And most of those levels aren't built for the athlete to win. Endorsements are the entry point. You wear the gear, post the content, smile for the camera. You're the attraction, not the owner. It's short-term income for you and long-term value for the brand. You generate the attention. They walk away with the equity. Sponsorships come next. Logos on jerseys, funding for events, maybe some upgraded gear. But don't get it twisted. That's still visibility without power. They get your audience. You get the banner. Then there's the brand ambassador route. It looks official. It feels long-term. But most of those roles are product-based or underpaid compared to the value extracted. You become part of the brand family, but without any real stake in the family business. Now, here's the shift, equity. This is the line in the sand. When athletes say, if I'm carrying your brand, I want to own part of the company. The power dynamic flips because equity means you're not just generating value, you're participating in it. If the company grows, you grow. If the brands win, you win. That's long-term wealth. That's residual income. That's actual power, not the performance of it.
Come on now, Auntie Cess. Let me pick it up from there because this is where we flip the script. Let's bring in some examples. While in college, Angel re-signed a major NIL deal with Reebok. It's now been extended to her pro career. A brand with a legacy of centering black athletes back in the day with Allen Iverson. Now here's the twist. Shaq is running Reebok now. So Angel's not just signing a deal, she's aligning with a black executive who understands ownership. That's a chess move, not checkers. Then there's Flaw J. Johnson, baller, rapper, and business mind. Her deal with Puma isn't just about free gear. She partnered with Rock Nation, meaning she tied into a legacy of hip-hop ownership, strategy, and influence. Her brand is cross industry, music, fashion, and hoops. That's cultural capital being monetized across verticals. That's how dynasties begin. Now, let's not forget LeBron James, one of the first athletes of his generation to treat himself like a corporation. When he took equity in Beats by Dre, not just a paycheck, he walked away with an estimated $30 million when Apple bought that company. Then he built Blaze Pizza from the ground up with a stake in the company. Add to that Spring Hill Entertainment, his own production company, not just starring in films, but producing them. That's full control of the narrative and the profit. And then there's the queen, Serena Williams. Baby, she didn't stop at tennis. She launched Serena Ventures, investing in over 60 companies, many of them women-led, Black-led, or innovation-focused. She's not just cashing out. She's seeding a whole new generation of entrepreneurs. That's how we move from endorser to investor. If your name builds the brand, you deserve more than just a billboard. And if you can't pass the deal down to your children, it ain't wealth. It's just work.
Facts, Lil. What does power look like when it stops smiling for cameras and starts signing checks on the back end? Let's break open this next layer because athletes, women and men, are finally shifting the game. There's a new generation refusing to settle for endorsements alone. They're drawing a line in the sand, equity or nothing. And that mindset, that's the spark of a movement. Start with the current force of nature in women's basketball. A'ja Wilson. She's not just dominating the league, she's redefining image control. Her Nike partnership isn't a shoe deal, it's a strategic platform. She's shaping campaigns, influencing the storytelling, and making sure her presence drives the brand's direction. That's not decoration, that's authorship. That positions her to own the narrative attached to her name, not hand it over for scraps. Then there's Nafisa Collier, operating on an entirely different wavelength. She didn't sit around waiting for the WNBA to evolve. She built the evolution herself. With Breanna Stewart, she co-founded Unrivaled, a women's pro 3-on-3 league owned by the players. Let's be clear. This isn't participation. This isn't permission. This is infrastructure. This is athletes creating the system instead of performing for it. And add in someone like a Drew Holiday who moves quietly but with real intention. During the NBA bubble, he committed his salary to Black-owned businesses and justice initiatives. That's not a feel-good gesture. That's the economic strategy. That's what happens when an athlete treats their money as capital and not consumption. He's not just accumulating followers, he's building networks, empowering communities, and shifting resources where they've historically been denied.
And let me stir in a heavy one right here. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq isn't just rich, he's deeply invested. From owning franchises like Auntie Annie's, Five Guys, and Papa John's to investing in Ring before it's sold to Amazon. He's stacking not just checks, but equity. He's also in sports bars, gyms, and real estate. Shaq doesn't just play in the system, he builds inside it. That's the difference between being marketable and being a market mover. Now, contrast that with the athletes still tied into brand ambassador only deals. You know the ones, front of the billboard, back of the contract. They're smiling in campaigns, rocking luxury gears, boosting follower counts. And what's left at the end of the deals? You gave them access to your culture, your followers, your influence. And they gave you a check with an expiration date. That ain't wealth. That's hustle culture dressed up in sneakers. Now, here's the truth. If you don't own the platform, you are the product. If they can profit every time your name trends and you don't get a cut, you're being minded. These stories we're telling aren't about stardom, they're about strategy. We're spotlighting the athletes who decide they weren't just going to play the game, they were going to change the rules. Endorsements fade, equity compounds. You tell me which ones sound like freedom. And remember, visibility without ownership is a trap with good lighting.
Lil, when did being seen replace being paid? Who benefits from your shine when you don't own the spotlight? Let's talk about that without the glitter. This is the trap. Polished, branded, and sold as success. Athletes today, especially Black athletes, are being fed visibility as if it's power. But standing in the spotlight isn't the same as holding the keys. Power is ownership. Power is equity. Power is the ability to make decisions when nobody's filming. We've gone from being ignored to being everywhere, and somehow still not in control. The system updated its tactics. They figured out how to make overexposure look like empowerment. Give them followers, give them likes, put them on a billboard, but don't give them a meaningful stake in anything. So now we got athletes with massive platforms and zero equity. You're the face of the ad, not the owner of the asset. You're trending online while someone else is cashing out offline. They handed you visibility and kept the ownership. And let's call it what it is. Black culture is the entire engine of modern sports marketing. The style, the music, the language, the swag, all of it comes from Black youth. It's the foundation of the NBA aesthetic, college football culture, and every viral sports moment. Yet when you follow the money, who's actually getting paid? Who's on the board? Who's signing the check? Who holds the equity? Brands love the culture, but they don't love giving Black athletes a real seat in the power structure. They want the image, not the ownership.
Say it louder, Auntie Cess, because the game changed, but not enough. With NIL, these athletes now have the legal right to profit off their name, image, and likeness, Now that's agency, but agency without education is just freedom without a blueprint. The system gave them the keys, but didn't teach them how to drive. Why? Because the powers that be are betting that athletes will stay distracted by clout instead of chasing capital. There's still a massive financial literacy gap in this space. Athletes are signing contracts they can't read, agreeing to percentages they don't understand, giving away licensing rights for the illusion of a quick bag. And let's talk about agents. Many agents aren't focused on long-term wealth building. They want their cut, not your legacy. A lot of them are middlemen, not mentors. And colleges, don't even get me started. These schools didn't teach financial literacy before NIL, and they're barely doing it now. Why would they? An educated athlete is a dangerous one. And you better believe institutional resistance is real. Some coaches, schools, and sponsors are quickly panicking behind the scenes because they spent decades controlling the narrative, and now these young Black athletes have the tools to build their own. That's why there's so much concern about NIL distracting the players. They don't want athletes distracted. They want them disempowered. Don't confuse the spotlight with ownership. One can blind you, the other one can build you. NIL opened the door, but without financial literacy, many athletes will still be locked out of the boardroom.
Let's shift from calling out the system to building the blueprint, because visibility without strategy is how athletes get trapped. NIL opened the door, but a door ain't ownership, and ownership ain't legacy. Generational wealth means your name feeds your bloodline, the same way these corporations have fed off Black talent for decades. So where does the real work begin? Step one, financial literacy. If you don't understand how money moves, it will always move around you. Athletes don't just need agents, they need financial architects, CPAs, wealth advisors, IP attorneys, people who protect assets, not just negotiate appearances. Every NIL contract should come with a crash course: how taxes hit, how investments grow, how intellectual property works. Because signing a deal isn't just taking a check, it's licensing pieces of your identity. If you don't know what you're giving up, you can't protect what you're building. Step two, think like a brand, not just a body. Jerseys fade, narratives last. Your real currency isn't just your stat line, it's your story, your voice, your impact. NIL lets athletes monetize their narrative, but only if they control it. Look at Flau'jae Johnson. She didn't just collect deals, she created an ecosystem: music, media, fashion, hoops, different lanes feeding the same brand. That's not endorsement, that's empire building. That's how legacy starts.
Facts on T says. And here's step three: own equity, not just energy. Every young athlete should be asking, can I own a piece? If a brand wants your face, your follow, and your swag, make them pay in shares, not just in shout outs. Look at LeBron, look at Shaq, look at Angel Reese. Don't just promote the drink, buy into the company. Equity is wealth that works when you're sleeping. Endorsements expire, ownership scales. Step four, form a team that reflects your future, not your fame. Your agent, lawyer, financial advisor shouldn't just be there in the spotlight. They should be invested in your long-term vision. And most importantly, you should have somebody in the room who looks like you and cares about the culture, because this isn't just business, it's community building. And lastly, step five, reinvest in the village. That's right. Don't just make money, multiply it in your community. Start youth leagues, buy back your block, build training facilities, fund scholarships, create your own NIL platforms, be the ecosystem. When athletes build where they come from, they stop being stories and start becoming systems. Legacy ain't what you leave behind, it's what you build while you're still here. If the name on your jersey is worth millions, then the name on your birth certificate is worth billions. Own it.
Let's be clear. From the jump, this conversation isn't just business, it's about control. And the moment Black athletes start speaking the language of ownership and equity, the entire system starts to tense up. They were comfortable when the role was limited to performance: run, jump, entertain. But the second athletes start reading contracts, demanding percentages, or building their own institutions, the resistance shows up instantly. Schools and coaches have already exposed their hands. Suddenly, NIL is a distraction. Suddenly, a player protecting their value is selfish. But that critique has never been about team culture. It's about protecting access to unpaid labor. The NCAA spent decades insisting that paying athletes would destroy the purity of college sports. And yet, post-NIL, the only thing that collapsed was their monopoly over Black talent. And the media, they've been running the same place since the beginning. Watch the language. Black athletes who move like CEOs get labeled as difficult, greedy, or unfocused. White athletes doing the exact same thing are framed as innovators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. That contrast isn't accidental, it's a signal. This isn't just about the money, it's about race, power, and narrative control. It's about who the system believes deserves to build wealth and who it believes should stay grateful for being visible.
Now that's the gospel says. Let's talk strategy because this resistance, it isn't accidental, it's institutional. Agents and brands are scrambling to maintain their slice of the pie. Suddenly they're offering more short-term deals, trying to look like allies, but keeping ownership for themselves. Some even tell athletes not to push too hard on equity. Don't rock the boat. That boat was never built for us to steer. Colleges are panicking over NIL collectives that give players power outside of school control. You got schools trying to limit how athletes engage with their followers, managing their content, or speaking publicly about finance. That's not about education, that's about containment. Because if athletes learn the full game, the plantation dies. And let's not ignore the push from fans. You got whole comment sections filled with just play the game or you're lucky to be here. That's an old sharecropping mindset talking. Be grateful you allowed to be seen, but don't ask to own the field. But these athletes, they're asking, they're demanding. And that's shaking up everything from the boardroom to the booster club. If the system is fighting you this hard, you must be getting close to that real freedom. NIL wasn't supposed to make athletes rich. It was supposed to keep them quiet. The resistance is proof that empowerment is working.
Now that we getting paid, how do we get organized? See, let's get to the actual battleground, the political arena. NIL opened the door, but walking through without a strategy still leaves you powerless. Because the truth is simple. Ownership creates leverage, and leverage creates power. If you want systems to treat you differently, you can't show up with highlights alone. You show up with capital, collective influence, and infrastructure. Picture this, athletes forming investment coalitions instead of operating as isolated earners, not individual bank accounts, shared economic power. Think of it as a black athlete investment network. Players pooling NIL revenue, equity shares, and endorsement money to build institutions. Our banks, our media companies, our tech firms, our athletic enterprises. Generational wealth doesn't come generational wealth doesn't come from virality. It comes from owning the platform everyone else is posting on. And let's talk about shifting from consumption to capital. Visibility won't save you, assets will. Instead of pouring money into luxury, athletes need to pour money into leverage, real estate portfolios, not just real-time content. Franchise ownership, the kind that produces income whether you play or not. Planet Fitness, Wingstop, Subway, businesses that generate cash flow long after the camera stopped rolling. Own media, so the narrative isn't filtered through someone else's lens. Black tech startups that build scale, not just style. Those aren't side ventures, they're liberation strategies.
And here's where it gets political for real. Because what you build, you have to protect. That's where policy comes in. That's where organizing comes in. NIL isn't just about contracts, it's about a chance to create new systems that tie economics to our collective future. Imagine NIL collectives funding Black political candidates who actually protect athletes' rights. Imagine players endorsing legislation for education reform, mental health support, or community investment. That's power. And don't forget the institutions that already love us. We just need to link arms with them. We're talking HBCUs, Black churches, community co-ops. What if NIL money funded community food banks or built affordable housing near college campuses? What if every NIL deal had a give back clause to Black schools or sports program? Now you're talking not just as a baller, you're a movement. We have to reframe the game from performers to planners, from products to political organizers. Athletes aren't just part of the culture, they're the engines of it. And if they unite economically, strategically, and politically, we could see the rise of a Black athlete class, not just rich, but powerful. They train us to run, jump, and entertain. But what happens when we stop dancing and start organizing? It's time to turn NIL into SOS, structures for self-determination. The revolution won't just be televised, it'll be monetized, legalized, and Black owned.
What does winning actually look like? Not just on the scoreboard, but in the future we're trying to build. We've exposed the system, broken down the economics, and mapped out the manipulation. Now the question shifts. What do we do with this knowledge? Because NIL might be the spark, but we are the architects. These billion-dollar sports machines were built to extract black talent and discard black bodies, unless we build the structure to protect our worth and multiply our power. See, for young athletes, the shift starts here. Stop thinking like a product, start thinking like a portfolio. If you're 16 or 17 and getting recruited, your family needs more than a trainer and a highlight reel. You need a team, a lawyer who reads every line, a financial advisor who protects every dollar, a brand strategist who understands long-term value, and somebody in the room willing to say that offer doesn't have enough equity. Your image is an asset. Your story is capital. Stop handing it away for temporary applause or social media clout. Understand term sheets, understand equity, understand ownership. Because if you don't know what you're worth, the system will decide for you. And parents, this part is yours. Don't get so focused on seeing your child go pro that you forget the real professional move is ownership. Sit in on NIL meetings. Demand transparency. Ask the questions agents hope you won't. Make sure your child isn't being marketed while being mentally and financially mismanaged. Fame won't sustain them, but a foundation will. The foundation starts at home, in the conversations, in the contracts, in the planning, and in the vision you help them build.
And let me say this to the community. You got to roll too. We need to shift from being fans of the game to investors in the future. That means supporting Black-owned brands these athletes build. That means showing up to the local school board meeting to demand financial literacy programs. That means pushing for policies that protect NIL rights and calling out institutions still trying to be the gatekeepers of opportunity. We also need to teach our young ones early that this system was never built for our freedom. If we want a new outcome, we need a new operating system. That means community-based NIL incubators, athlete-owned media collectives, legal clinics for contracts, and Black banks to underwrite our ventures. The same way there's AAU for sports, we need to have AAU for business, athletes advancing unity. Let's be real. The window is open right now. NIL cracked the door. It's time to kick it off the hinges. Because if we don't organize, strategize, and politicize this moment, they'll find new ways to repackage the plantation and sell us a newer jersey. But if we link arms, players, parents, professors, pastors, we won't just be in the game, we'll run it. The future ain't just for the flashy, it's for the focused. Athletes, we love your highlight reels, but we want to see your holding companies. This ain't just NIL, this is nation building. So ask yourself, will you be the face of someone else's brand or the founder of your own legacy?
Let's make this plain. This moment is bigger than checks and brand placement. If you're an athlete or guiding one, the priority is simple. Stop promoting what you don't own. That jersey, that shoe line, that logo you boosting, follow the money. If the revenue isn't flowing back to you, the deal isn't power, it's promotion. This is where the shift happens. You have to understand the gap between having your face on a product and having equity in the company behind it. Endorsements make you visible. Equity makes you a decision maker. Don't accept the first contract somebody hands you. Study it, challenge it, rewrite it. Because what you sign today determines the legacy your name carries tomorrow. And to the parents, educators, community leaders, this part is critical. NIL education must become mandatory. Financial literacy, contract literacy, IP ownership, investment strategy. This has to be taught early. We're not raising athletes, we're raising owners, negotiators, political actors, and future architects of Black economic infrastructure. Build with intention, build with discipline, build with strategy, because the power you accumulate off the court is what protects everything you create on it. That's how legacy is built, not for a season, but for generations. So take this with you. Every time you wear a logo, ask one question: who's profiting and why isn't it you? Dr. Claude Anderson told the truth. If we don't control the economics of our image, we remain performers, not owners. That's the crossroads in front of us. Either be the face of someone else's empire or build a structure that carries your name. The path forward is intentional. Tell a young athlete they are not just a brand, they are a business. Connect them to NIL educators, financial mentors, and Black venture networks. Share the resources to shift futures, because the next playbook won't be written by the institutions, it'll be written by us. Y'all, this is Political Lil and Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies. Y'all stay tuned. Talk soon. We out.